over at Music Store Live, and today we're talking to Francesco Castro. Thank you so much for joining us, Francesco.
Oh, it's my pleasure, my pleasure.
So you're over in London right now?
I'm in London, in the UK right now, yes.
That's cool. And what are you doing over there?
Well, I'm based here since a while, and I'm a touring musician. I worked with an international platinum recording artist called Patrizio Buanne, which is an artist of Italian origins. I'm a jazz player in my own rights, and matter of fact, at the moment, I'm #1 in the charts of the most downloaded from All About Jazz charts.
Yeah, congratulations on that. I saw that on your website.
Thank you so much. And I'm a university teacher when it comes to music. I'm a lecturer too, and I'm a composer. I'm a modern musician. Let's put it this way. I do a lot of things.
Yeah, you kind of have a foot in each world, kind of.
Yeah,
cool.
I guess you have to. I mean, for a modern musician, I think it's quite important to diversify. I mean, it's a state of the industry. Let's put it this way.
Right, and then it kind of, it also probably helps your playing a lot too, because you have to handle so many different things.
Exactly. Plus, it keeps you. It's very interesting because I guess maybe like 10, 20 years ago was maybe counterproductive not to pigeonhole yourself in a certain kind of style. Say like I'm a jazz player, I'm a rock player, or I'm a metal player. So you had to be something. Instead, like I think. Today is more accepted the idea that a player is a player and can tackle different kind of styles, and the idea to play different kind of styles is great because, in a way, as a musician, you never get bored.
Yeah, totally. That's great. So the big thing I noticed about you, I was, checking out your website and stuff, you came to music pretty late. You didn't start playing until you were 25, is that correct?
Yes, I started studying at 25. I studied economy before I did music.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's kind of, upsets that whole stereotype, great musicians start when they're like 1 year old or something. So.
I think, I always had a passion for music, so I guess like my sense of rhythm or my ear probably developed because I used to go to sleep with headphones on. I think by the time I was 12, I always loved to listen to music with headphones. But the idea of studying scales and arpeggios and all, music, it came pretty late when I, decided I wanted to do it. And I guess when you're older, you have more will. Yeah, you have a lot of willpower to achieve as quickly as possible in a way, because you already feel kind of starting late. But yeah, definitely possible. And I think I might be saying something wrong, but I think that with Montgomery started really late. So I
Al Farlow too.
I remember something like that, so, it is possible.
Right. Do you come from a musical family?
Not at all. I'm the first one.
Oh, wow, yeah, that's the same with me. No one in my family is musical. And
I had an uncle that used to play classical guitar, I believe, but he stopped by the time I was 3 or 4, so I have just very distant memories of it.
Yeah, I gotcha. That's cool. So are there any challenges, you think, to coming to it late?
I don't know, to be honest. It's a good question. I think that there is a substantial difference. And when you're younger and you start younger, probably you go through the process of emulation, in the sense that you have guitar heroes and you tend to copy them, literally, which is, great in its own sense. And then by the time you're maybe 18, 19, 20 or something, you start maybe develop a personality and eventually a unique voice, because that's, I think, it's necessary for every player to have a unique voice. When you start later, probably you go directly for the unique voice, because at least in my case, I didn't feel I had the time to really transcribe every guitar player I loved, because I had the urgency to have a style straight from the beginning, put it this way.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably the biggest challenge. In fact, I released my first album, although I composed at all times, but I never felt like releasing anything until I felt, okay, this is personal enough now to be released, and I released it when 10 years later, And since then, I've been releasing already 6 albums, but I did wait a bit because just to achieve the kind of voice, that I think, I repeat, as a soloist, it's important to have. It's important to be recognizable. So.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So now all those albums are on your own record label, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Flo
Absolutely.
Castro, I think is the name.
Castro Records, yeah.
Flo Castro. So how did that come about? Did you just decide you wanted to do that yourself rather than kind of trying to hunt down?
I think there was Frank Zappa that at some point said that to a very young Steve Vai something like keep the publishing.
Yeah.
and I went down the route. I mean, at the end of the day, if we look at the state of the industry today, again, the modern musician has to deal with the digital, so with phenomenon like Spotify or Pandora, which they don't pay a big deal in terms of performance royalties or stream connected royalties. In that sense, the cost of production. I mean, like record label, beside having a nice phone book in case they have contacts with press or other PR phenomenon like this, I don't think they can do much, and the production cannot cost anymore like it used to be affordable because the return is not that much.
Right,
and I think the publishing to keep the publishing is key.
Yeah. So you mentioned Zappa in there. Is he a big influence of yours?
I think it's a big influence, maybe not directly musically, although I love his music. So as a composer, maybe not. As his philosophy towards music and overall as a character and, for all he's left behind in terms of forward thinking.
Right, yeah.
As a forward thinker, absolutely. I think he was ahead of his time at all times. Be like Miles Davis, this kind of character with always pushing boundaries, and I admire those kind of people quite a lot.
Yeah, totally. I was watching some of his interviews online the other day, and I think I remember thinking the same thing. Just kind of like, wow, the things that were coming out of his mouth were just so clear and articulate and kind of ahead of their time, like you said. So it's always cool to see. So who were some of those musical influences then? I know you have a song or an album as a tribute to Duke Ellington. Was he a big influence when you were kind of finding your voice?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that again there is a series of people, and I think the American expression would be on whose shoulders we stand upon, kind of thing. And definitely Duke Ellington, when it comes to jazz, is one of them. At the same time, it's not a pure tribute to Duke in the sense that I didn't went and looked for his style and trying to emulate his style, but let's say that the album sees three different moments. One is actually taking some of the harmonic ideas of Duke Ellington and write some new music on top of that. On a different level, instead, it was more about trying to write music that I wish if Duke Ellington was alive today would have played. So it's not harmonically really related to Duke, but is a tribute in that sense. And also there is a third side to it, which is the kind of images that the music of Duke Ellington put in my head. All of my music is very cinematic. I like to call it cinematic because it's very soundtrack oriented. One of my early influences is Mike Oldfield. So the kind of music that is very image related is very evocative. And even when I'm playing jazz, I tend to have this tendency to compose with that kind of style. So it's very often I would throw in there ideas which they might sound more like a soundtrack as opposed to any particular other style.
Yeah, that's cool. I noticed that on your website, and it mentions the soundtrack thing, and then it also says the Italian melodic tradition. And I wanted to ask you about that. I think a lot of American jazz musicians aren't really familiar with that. What is the Italian melodic tradition?
Well, if you think of Italy is a country where opera has always been a very big thing, 16th century, 17th century, and so forth. Italians have a very particular relation with melody. We're very melodic by nature, I want to say. I would compare it to people in Texas playing blues. It's something that it's in their culture. I don't think that when they're playing, they need really to be thinking about if it's a pentatonic, or they don't have to think about it in technical terms. although of course there is a dosage of technicality, but it's just the sound of that environment. It just belongs there. And Italian seems to have a huge sense of melody. Again, probably coming from the old classical music tradition and evolved, into the 20th century. And when I was trying to figure out my voice, I had to take into account where I come from. Although, of course, I love electric guitar, and that's pretty much an American thing, and I love jazz, which is a big part of your culture. And I wanted to tackle the idea of improvising and, that kind of language. At the same time, I had to take into account where I was coming from in order not to emulate or trying to sound American when I'm not. Because I always, I had a chance of touring the U.S. several times, and I noticed that, I love American musicians because they express their own culture, and what they taught me was to go back to my roots and try to express my own culture. Of course, we are in a generation that travels way more than 30 years ago, so it's normal that there are influences across the entire board. But as I said, I find harmonically, American music is very, very, very advanced, and I took some of those ideas from it, while I find Italian music, in particular, Southern Italian music, extremely melodic. And and that's why, for me, for example, to improvise a melody is a very simple thing. I don't really have to think about it. I can improvise melodies for hours. And I repeat, probably it's got a lot to do with the kind of radio we listen growing up. It's the entire environment, probably because it's sunny.
Yeah.
I mean, think of Italy, think of art, and think of church music in a way.
Oh yeah, sure.
So in that sense, is the pace of the music is not as frenetic or as edgy as, say, a production in New York, where the town reflects in the production. So if you try and think of a production in Rome, it makes you more think of a scooter and sun and and an ice cream.
Right.
So trying to describe that kind of environment with a musical language, of course.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. Wow. I was going to ask you about the differences between American and European, or specifically Italian jazz musicians, but I think you just answered it. It's just kind of that connection to their culture and trying to represent that music.
Yeah, I think it's important because it's like at the end of the day, it does influence you even if you don't want to. No matter how much I would love to sound like, say, John Scofield or Alan Osborne, my musical heroes, or Aldi Meola, or all these guys. But I could always sound like, which is like being second best to somebody. And I'm not pretending here to be the best, but I try to be myself. I think Frank Sinatra used to say that you can only be you, but you can be very good at it. So I try to be me, because I guess that goes with the fact of starting music very late. You don't have the time to go through the usual, procedures, emulating somebody and then evolving into your own persona, So again, I think it's trying to be you, but do it well. Music is a wonderful language. It needs to be shaped as a language. It's not just about scales or pages or
right. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So if we could switch it up a little bit here. What guitar are you using right now? Or do you have a handful of guitars, or?
I do have a handful, but for all the more jazzy things, I use a Godin Duet, which is a nylon string guitar.
How do you like that?
I really like it. I have a sound on it which is combined with some Strymon reverb, and I love that combination for jazz. I mean, I just love that kind of sound because it's a mellow sound, and again, it goes back to my culture. It makes more sense to me playing a nylon string in that context than to play electric type of guitar.
Right.
The sound is more mellow and is sweet, but it's very Italian. It makes me think of Sammy, and I guess for the American culture, the closest association I can do is makes you feel like flamenco or that kind of vibe.
Right, yes.
Electric guitar wise, there is an English company called Vanquish, who designed the guitar for me for the touring and the studio work that I do. And it's a great guitar, I must say. I use it probably 85% of the time. And with a very complex switching system designed by Blackstar amplifier, where what we did, the shape is a bit like a PRS, I would say, and it's got, humbucker, single coil humbucker which are both splittable, and the 5-way switching system, and which is the most elaborated part of the guitar, allows me to get configuration of pickups which cover basically Stratocasters, Telecasters, and Les Pauls. Because again, modern musician on tour, like I do, in the past probably you could economically, again, production could economically afford for the guitar player to have 9 guitars.
Right, yeah.
Today it's very different. So with budget shrinking, I needed an instrument which was as versatile as possible, as in tune as possible, and with the greatest range of sounds to get out of it. And the Vanquish designed it, and it's an awesome guitar to be playing live.
Cool. So, and for pedals, what are you using for pedals these days?
Pedals, I love analog. Nothing against digital. I seem to be more attracted to the sound of analog, so I have single pedals. For distortions, again, I use an English company called Rothwell, which does some awesome distortions. I own 2 of them, and the reason I love them is because they are incredibly good sounding and also incredibly versatile. And I was drawn to them because Gary Moore used to work with them when he was alive, and because I always loved, what I loved about Gary Moore is the capacity to control the gain from the volume control on his guitar. And for that, you really need a distortion that really responds well to it. And by doing my little research, I came across this company in the UK called Rothwell. In fact, I got 2 of them. One for the more bluesy, Stevie Vaughan-y, I would say, type of distortion, which is called the L-Bender. And then I have the Tornado, which instead is more of a rockish, and I can push it all the way to thrash metal kind of sound. That's why I love them, because of that. I can have just 2 distortions on stage, and I can get an incredible amount of sounds out of them, from very felt type of blues to surf guitar to rock guitar to full-on type of slash type of sound.
Yeah.
I repeat, all the way to thrash. I did record some thrash metal for guitar for an artist here in the UK, still using the same pedals, which was quite awesome from that point of view. Chorus-wise, I use an American company called Tortuga, which I love their chorus pedals. Delays, again, it's an American company called Maleco. I love their 616 analog delay. For the switching, because I use a switching system, but like it's a German company called Lille, which does some really nice switching systems, so that I can have I only use 3 loops actually on stage, which is like clean, distorted rhythm, distorted lead, basically.
Cool.
So I manage all that by the Lille system.
Yeah, and are you going into? I saw some Fender amps on your website. Do you usually use those?
Yes. Fender Twin generally is my choice for. Well, sound-wise, it's one of them. Being a touring musician, that's the kind of amp that production can find in any country, in any location. And it might sound like a stupid reason, but I find it very clever what they did. The fact that you can actually tilt it on stage.
Oh yeah, sure.
And that allows me to actually not have the guitar in any wedge, but actually hear the sound of the guitar from the amp. And that to me makes a lot of difference when I'm playing live to a big audience, to be honest.
Yeah, I used to have a Twin before I really knew a lot about gear, and I always thought like it was broken because that little thing would slide back. And I was like, what is wrong with me? And then I realized I could do that, and it was like a different amp all of a sudden. I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool.
Exactly. I mean, it is a little thing, that probably, I don't know, cost $30, but it's a very clever thing at the end of the day, because if I had the amp, let's say at head levels, then I would have too many high frequencies. If it was not tilted, I would hear too many bass frequencies. Instead, like that, again, I prefer to hear the guitar from the cones of the guitar rather than from the cones of a wedge.
Right.
So, and for recording, instead for studio recording, I still use a Fender, but I use I have a 1976 Fender Princeton, which I inherited from my first guitar teacher, and I inherited from him, and I still use it today, and it's a lovely amp.
Cool, that's great. So Francesco, what's down the line for you? What are you doing over the summer?
Over the summer, I have a tour in Italy, starting at the end, in early September, and it's going to go all the way to the middle of October. I have a tour here in the UK with my own music, and I have a tour with an American drummer called Robert Castelli. And of course, Patrizia is going to be on tour soon again, both in the US and Australia. So yeah, quite a few things.
Yeah, that's great. Sounds like you're.
As a composer, I'm pretty much prolific. I released 4 albums in the last 2 years, basically. And from that point of view, I'm becoming similar to Zappa.
Yeah.
But so I enjoy the idea of not necessarily touring specific albums, but getting information out, and according to the information pick up from different albums, and basically in a way like revisiting the songs with different sounds at all times. And that also keeps it very fresh, very interesting for me as a player, and probably even for listeners, so they don't get to listen to the same show at all times.
Right, yeah. That's something a lot of people don't think about, but that's true. Well, hey, Francesco, thanks a lot for speaking with us today. But before I let you go, I just want to ask you something. We've been asking all the people we interview this. What is music?
Oh, God. Music is a language. For me, it's the only language that, when you look at it on a score, on a pentagram, it does include silence. You can actually code silence. You can tell a musician when to shut up, which is something that I don't think any other language, if you think of spoken language or painting or any other form of expression, that don't include this kind of aspect. Yeah, I really think like I see music like as a language where scales, arpeggios, and chords are simple, consonant and vowels, and then you phrase it, and then you try and express concepts, a bit like a sculpture. You try and create images, or you try and communicate. If you use lyrics, you try and communicate a particular concept, but using all that language. And since I deal with instrumental music only, at least largely when it comes to composing my own music, it's really about how do you find a way to say, I don't know, the sun is shining today, by using that language, that goes beyond to me the technical aspect, and I think it's a very powerful tool because everybody can relate to music, and everybody feels music. And I'm talking about from a listening point of view. People relate to rhythm by the time they're probably 1 or 2 years old, So it's got something magic to it, because it's, I repeat, everybody loves music, but then when you try and figure out what is it about sound that moves you inside, that's a very difficult question to answer.
Right. Well, hey, thanks a lot for talking to us today. This was really great, and anyone who's listening, be sure to check out flowcastro.com. There's a bunch of music on there too. You could listen to like a bunch of your songs, and there's a lot of great stuff.
Honestly, like we live in the digital era. By now I think my music it's outside of my control. I'm sure it's on Spotify, it's on MySpace.
Right.
It's a bit everywhere.
It sounds like you're embracing that though.
It's necessary.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, I love vinyl, but the new generations are all about the portable music,
Right.
I just hope that in the next 10 years' time, hard drive become bigger, and probably internet speed becomes faster, so that instead of streaming MP3s, which I find it very poor quality, maybe they can stream CD quality type of audio. Because we spend a lot of time, I mean, I'm sure if you're a musician, so we spend a lot of time trying to get the best sound. And trying to use the best guitars, the best preamps, the best pedals. And then to kind of reduce that into an MP3 is a bit of a pity, let's put it this way. But I don't think there is any coming back from that. I just hope that internet gets faster so that people can stream better quality.
Yeah, so they could hear actual CD quality with all the...
Yeah, exactly.
Like an AV file or something.
Yeah, not WAV or anything, like fully 24-bit and, no distortion possible. Or at least harmonic distortion, if anything, valve distortion.
Yeah, I gotcha. Cool. All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot for talking to us. And are you planning on coming to the States anytime soon?
I think. I released an album with an American band called the DLC Project, which is Pittsburgh-based, with a two-time Grammy Award winner called Eric DeFate. And we're planning on touring it. The album is out now. It's actually already charted for All About Jazz. And probably, hopefully in the spring, during the autumn, we're planning to come in probably on the West Coast first.
Yeah, cool. Well, if you ever find your way out here on the East Coast, I'm in Vermont. Be sure to get in touch. Because we have artists come through every now and then, and maybe meet up at some point.
We'd love to. Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks to everyone for listening, and good luck with all of your music over the summer.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me, and a big hello to everybody listening.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll see you later, Francesco.
See you. Bye.
Bye.